nightly. Yeah.
And then it becomes a hit, and we all see it.
Yeah.
From your pen, that's really wonderful.
Thank you.
So let me ask Ramesh. Ramesh, have you ever intentionally and purposely written a film for the big streamers? You say, I'm taking this pen and my aim is that this ends on Netflix. Has that ever happened with you?
Yeah, no, I haven't written for the big streamers. But when I'm flipping through Netflix or something, I'm like one, two, three, four, nah, nah, nah. You go through like 20 movies and you're like, why isn't there a movie that I want to see? And that makes me want to write something and to satisfy myself because otherwise you get constipated with ideas.
You have a lot of ideas in your mind.
Yeah, definitely.
That's wonderful. Let's go to our very own Nicole. Nicole, it would look like you, from the jump, just started writing for international streamers. But that's not the case, you tell me.
No, it's not. I wrote An African City with the intent to get it on Ghana television or TV3.
Like GTV?
GTV, TV3. I think at the time there was Viasat. That's no longer with us, but that was my goal, Ghana television. I wanted to put An African City on YouTube, get a few hundred views on each episode, use that as a proof of concept, go to these local networks, show them that it works. Look, there's a few hundred or a couple thousand people tuning in. This could work, this could work. But we put episode 1 up on a Sunday, and Monday morning I woke up to an email from BET. And the emails from other streamers kept coming in. Their numbers were good versus local networks that the numbers weren't as good. But yeah, my goal was Ghana television.
We'll do a small test now. If you love GTV, give me a wave. No, we've got a few in there. It would have been much more 10 years ago, but right now. So from there to, so you landed on the big streamers by accident, really?
Yes, by accident. Next thing I knew, we were on Hulu, seasons 1 and season 2, but that was never my goal, never my intent. I didn't even think that was possible. Sitting here, creating here, and then next thing I know, we're on Hulu for a 1-year licensing deal. I didn't know that was possible.
Really special case. let me delve into An African City for a moment. I saw it when I was in Lagos, I believe. So looking through the story, there's the Ghanaian story out. First of all, I was pleasantly surprised. And then with the storyline, this girl's coming back from the West, back to Ghana to live here, and one of them forgets a dildo at the airport, and it becomes a whole twist in that story. Tell me about that episode and how that changed things for you into the future.
That is really what propelled the whole season. Showing that dildo on screen, but being very honest, And the thing is, with being so honest with that episode, so many people came up to me afterwards to tell me their own customs stories, what got taken at Lagos airport, what got taken, and even in Paris. There were so many people who came up to me to tell me their own stories. And so it's just a proof of concept to writers. Just tell the truth in your stories, and it'll be so relatable.
Dildos were taken. When I was at the Lagos airport once, I saw a bunch of palm oil on the immigration officer's table. Huge one. Like, a lot of things get taken, including dildos. Collins, you have had a lot of success, and recently on the big streamers. So it would look like you purposely get up and write for the big streamers. But talk me through the process of even getting funding for the films you make and for them to eventually go international and end up on these platforms. How tough is that, or how easy is it for you?
Well, getting funding as a beginner is difficult. It's really difficult. I mean, it's a bit easier for me now because I have a couple of successful movies. So when I apply for funding, when I want funding, they can look at what I've done and they're like, okay, he's done some great things, so let's give him this. But as a beginner, you just need someone, from my own point of view, of course, you just need someone to believe in you. You just need to be able to sell your story to someone who believes in your vision, who's taking a risk for you. Now, if you are not lucky to find that person or that company or that organization that believes in you or that family member that wants to invest in what you want to do, it will be extremely difficult for you. So there is no easy route, like I said. But once you get a sponsor, if you're lucky enough to get a sponsor as a beginner, then you kick in. That's why whenever you get that sponsor and then you want to make your first film, you don't joke with your first film. You can't.
Recall for us the process of landing your first believer who funded anything.
So I lived in this estate. I no longer live there. I lived in this estate, and then the landlady was a woman I respected so much. I was always like saying hello to her. I had children who live abroad, so they are not easily accessible to her. So I became a kind of son to her.
Okay.
Right? Yeah, a sort of son, and I was very good to her. She was also good to me. So when I wanted to make my first film, my first major film, I did not approach her for money, right? I did not approach her for funding. But I was worried about where the money would come from, and she asked, "What's the problem? You bothered?" And then I had to tell her what I think, and then she's like, "Okay, I trust you. Let's do this." And she did not invest the whole money, but she funded part of it, and then the person I was working with, the director, also got money, and then we just came together and we made something, and it was quite good.
And it worked.
Yeah, it did.
But I just want to add to that. Funding is very, very, very important. Very important. However, for season 1, I think about all the people who supported the show, the production of the show, not necessarily with funds, but in other ways. I remember I went to an architect and I said, I'm looking for locations. The point of this show is I want to show a different side of the continent of Africa. I want it to look fabulous. I want people sitting in New York to be like, that's where I want to go. So I need the locations to be beautiful. Can I please use your buildings? Can I please use your apartments, your townhomes? And can I please use them for free? 3 days later, he called and said, yeah, sure, you can use them. So season 1, when you look at it, all the locations, all the apartments were given to us for free. And it really heightened the production values of the series and helped highlight what we're trying to do, that Ghana's a beautiful place.
Yeah. Looks like luck plays a bit of a role in everything we do. Ramesh, what funding for you and how you get by making films?
So I just want to make an unfiltered comment on what she said. I can imagine me going to some people and say, can I use this beautiful apartment? How much will you pay? So, okay.
So good luck, Nicole, huh?
Well,
Yeah,
I was
that's
able.
why I use it these days.
It was also a way for him to also market his properties. I mean, so any reasonable businessman or woman would know that this is actually a marketing tool for him.
I think you went to the right people,
Yes.
probably. Yeah. A lot of people don't believe in funding movies. They think it's a waste of time. So to convince people to sponsor movies, forget about it. I think it's like a $5 billion market, but we are not treated as an industry. Everybody is like an individual.
Is there an industry here in Ghana? Because you've operated in the Ghanaian industry for so long. You're absolutely Ghanaian now, and you've been here for so long. Is there an industry
3
here?
generations.
Is there an industry? No.
There's not an industry.
No, there's an effort being made. There's a National Film Authority who are working hard to bring some respectability to this profession. But generally, like if you go to the bank, I mean, forget about it. I mean, they're not going to. They don't believe. Even Mr. Kwawansa, who's a veteran filmmaker, he was talking about the trouble he had to finance his movie, Heritage Africa. He was lucky to get a relative to help him out. But the struggles he went through, and I'm thinking he's such a veteran, famous filmmaker. If he's having
Kwawansa,
if he's having all these problems, the newcomers, a young guy with ambition, with dreams, and all that, who is he going to go to? I mean, he's just got a script, and he's new, and he's got to start somewhere, or she's got to start somewhere. And she goes to an institution, or they'll not believe because there's no track record, and how much money are you going to make? I don't think we even have data of how much money Ghana makes in filmmaking, or how many movies do we make. I know in Nigeria they make about 2,500 movies. I don't know how many movies we make in Ghana. So it's not structured. I hope the NFA, I'm sure, I mean, definitely they're taking steps to make sure that, we get recognized so that if if a filmmaker goes to any institution, they'll be respected enough to at least be heard and
Be
probably
heard.
given, yeah,
Be heard.
yeah.
Nicole, do you feel that you're much ahead of the Year of Return initiative through your series, the African City?
I mean, that's what an African city was. It was about the return. The first episode was called The Return. And one of my goals was to encourage people to look at Ghana as a potential home. Whether you're a Ghanaian American in the diaspora, whether you're a Black American in the diaspora, I wanted people to consider Ghana home. So
And
yes.
you did that. The government owes you some money, yeah?
How much? Should I go to them?
Yeah,
Ask
you
them for about $1 million?
You deserve more.
Okay.
Because years later, we got a flood of human beings from the Americas. I mean, thanks to shows like that show a different side of Ghana. Prior to what we used to see, the stories we used to see, you really changed us. Let's look into the future, Collins. It's a young writer who's doing amazing things already, making amazing films. What's the future of what you do as an African writer?
Well, first of all, if you're asking what I think the future will be for me, like I mentioned earlier, when I tell stories for two reasons. Do I want this story to be a commercial success, or do I want this story to be artistic, creative, right? So when I want to write for commercial success, when I want to write for money, I know what to do. I know the kind of stories to tell. And when I want to write purely for creativity, I know the kind of story to tell. So all I need to do is study the environment I am writing the story in, the environment the story will be featured in. I study the environment, and then I write stories about them, stories that they would like, even if they are not my best stories, right? So talking about myself in future, I want to get to that point where I do not have to write stories because I want to make money. That's just me being very honest. I want to be able to tell stories the way I think they should be told, not telling them because I want to be commercially successful. Yeah.
So you're a little unhappy with the Tribe Called Judas commercial success. You don't like it too much.
That's not true. I love it. I'm proud of it, of course. Yeah.
You don't like it too much. But tell me, for all three of you, I'm coming to you, all three of you, for this before we go back into the future. Tell me how you feel. All three of you have gotten critical acclaim, respected for what you do, but you've also gotten commercial appeal and revenues for what you've done. What's the feeling like? You juxtapose that feeling for me. Critical acclaim, people respect my work. I made money. How do you feel in the both situations?
I like when I make money. I love it a lot. But then I have never really been poor. I'm sorry, this sounds arrogant. I've never really been
That's all
poor.
right.
So when I make money, I am happy. But then not as much as I feel when I get critical acclaim, positive critical acclaim. Yeah, so I love the positive critical acclaim more. But at the same time, I need to do things with money. I need to feed, I need to pay my bills and all. So
You got it. Ramesh, critical acclaim, popularity. How do you feel in both of those situations?
Okay, so because I'm mostly a television commercial director, I'm used to quick turnarounds, and the people give me the money and off you go. With a movie, it's almost like a 2-3 year investment. So if I'm going to put that kind of time and effort, I have to make money. So if my first movie doesn't do so well, next time I'm writing a script, I'm like, will I make it or something? So money, the first movie you write is from the heart. The second movie you get really influenced by whether it's going to be a success or not, because people are not going to give you finance or something if the movie doesn't make money, and you cannot be financing your movie all the time. So critical acclaim, which brings me money. Yep.
That's wonderful. Nicole,
Yeah, I mean, an African city. Luckily, it was both. I was very stupid. I put my money into season one. I don't really know what I was thinking, but I put my own money into season one. But I got it all back because of the acclaim, the applause I was getting. Yeah, so it meant that I could go to companies, and then they offered brand placement. It meant that networks like Canal Plus, Okoh TV, etc., were calling me for licensing deals, and all of this I didn't know the TV industry, but it was just happening. And then for season two, we put it on a monetized website, and I think a week before we had pre-sales that were already making up about a quarter of the money of the budget. And so yeah, it was, and we're still making money off of it. 10 years later, the fact that people can still call us and say, hey, we would like to license this. And we've already made all of our money back, but it's something that will always make us money, even if it's a smaller amount, but it'll always make us money. I like both. I want both. I will say for Baby Something, and we didn't discuss this before about how much I can share, but with Baby Something, I mean, that was a project from the heart, and we didn't really spend much money on that.
Well, not in terms of cash, but in terms of time and effort. Yeah.
Yes. I guess we should have discussed this before, but I look at that. I look at that about how we really kept the budget low, but how we played it at festivals, and then next thing I was getting a call from American Airlines that they want to license it to play on their airline. But yeah, at least with something like that, we kept the budget really low, and so basically we've made like 2,000% back.
So
Wow.
yeah, I mean the crew was me and two lights, and of course the camera, and then Nicole and the baby. Our
I
baby.
acted in it.
Baby
So-
something.
Yeah, so she's on my baby at
4 months old. She was
she's
4
on
months.
IMDb. It took me like 30, 40 years, and she's on.
Let's talk about that baby. Now that baby something. It's now IMDb.
Well, I mean, yeah, my daughter, one day I was looking and suddenly my daughter had an IMDb
How old is
page.
she now?
She's a year and a half.
Wow, the youngest film producer maybe.
Exactly.
What makes you want to do a different film like Baby Something?
Well, all my projects are ever about. It's about honesty. So when I wrote An African City, I was in my 20s. I was dating in Accra. So that was my honesty. And that was the honesty of my girlfriends. With Baby Something, I was a new mom. And I was struggling. And also something that I never really thought about was the complexion of my child would be and how much that might affect me. And so I just decided to be really honest about it. So An African City is just written out of honesty. Baby Something is written out of honesty. And I love that because the conversations that come my way, the people who approach me about their own stories, I just love it.
Okay, Ramesh, in the last 10 years, or in the last decade, from trying to write stories over here and succeeding on the big streamers, when you three go into business now and into meetings abroad somewhere talking about your film, do you see the difference in how you were treated today as opposed to how you were treated many years ago when the industry was basically just crawling from Africa?
Well, it's a bit different for me. I am a professional pharmacist. I'm a pharmacist, and I did not start writing until just 4 years ago. And
Okay.
then my first film was a hit. So so from my first film, I have been well received.
You're already in there. The market was
Yeah.
great. 4 years ago, the market was wonderful.
So I just left pharmacy and I got into writing, and I did not necessarily struggle, for lack of a better word.
Yes.
So I may not be able to
Be
relate
able
to how
to.
people looked at me back then. I think I am more recognized now, but not like it was bad then.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Your friends in pharmacy must be very envious of you today, huh?
Well, they are, or they don't care. They are making more money. A lot of them are in Europe now, America, doing very well for themselves. I could have also been there, but I made a different decision, and I'm glad
Yeah.
it's kind of paying off.
That's wonderful. You're making money and you're a star too, Ramesh.
So I'll be very honest. I haven't really sat in big meetings or anything. I've followed my wife and seeing how she talks to them. But I think we have to realize that they also need us. We should go with a certain confidence that it's not we're not going to beg or anything. We also have something that they need, and as long as we are authentic with our storytelling, tell stories our way, they will always need us because I think they're saturated. Even the Western market, if I might call that. I mean, it's the same old movies, right? I mean, you've seen one
Yeah.
Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, you've seen them all.
Yeah.
So what we have over here is unique stories and a unique storytelling experience. So I just go out. I'm like, okay, if you want me, fine. If you don't want me, I'll go show my movie somewhere else.
Quite honest, I think Hollywood is struggling with what to do with us. I think it's also a boomerang effect. I think there was a time that to be a producer or director or an actor from the African continent was exciting. But I mean, right now, a lot of my friends of African descent have been dropped by their agencies. It's getting harder and harder to find jobs. The numbers being offered are lower and lower, right? Because they've heard this rumor that they can get movies here for cheap, so their offers are getting lower and lower. And that's why I don't want to depend on Hollywood. I don't want us to depend on Hollywood. I want us to figure it out.
By the way, so I want to give the audience a few minutes to ask some questions, but you just touched on something that's really important. They've heard that they can get films for cheap over here. We hear this in different industries, that, the same Ghanaians will go and, blacklist their fellow Ghanaians, and the money gets smaller and smaller and smaller. How did this begin, and what can we do about it?
Again, it means I don't want to focus on them. We need to figure it out here. How can I be a success even if Hollywood doesn't exist? How can I be a success? I have a whole continent, a continent of 1 billion people. If my shows and if my projects are successful here on the continent, that should make me a success.
Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for that. We have 1 billion people on a continent, 1 billion people that can see your movies and your scripts and all of that. I think that's the direction we should go.
And I want to also add, and I wish I had thought about this more so I can articulate it better, but in the case of Ghana, if you look at like all our raw materials, like gold and cocoa, we tend not to add value to it, right? We export it, and value is added over there. And there's colonialism, neo-colonialism, imperialism. In the same way, that's happening with our films, with our projects. Look at so many African projects, African films and TV shows. Who owns them? More and more, it's the West who's owning them.
That's right.
Who's not just licensing them, but commissioning them, owning them. And so there's this neo-colonialism of even our TV and film industry, and we have to be very careful about that.
That's right. Glad to hear that. Okay, our audience, I'll take about 3 questions quickly, if anyone has a question. Okay. Can someone help me with the microphone, please? The young lady over here. Oh, not you. Okay, questions? In the back there. Turn around, sir, in the back.
Hi, my name is Shika.
Hello, Shika.
I'm from Academy 11. You see a bunch of young footballers here, and you'll be wondering, what are footballers doing with actors and film? It's just to reaffirm that we want to tell our own story. And telling our own story, I like what Ramesh said. We are also bringing something to the table. So we scout a kid coming from Dwyer Nkwanta, Kintampo, 11 hours, 13 hours from Accra. You bring him here, he turns to your Mohammed Kudus, Kamaldeen Suleimana. You want to have the authenticity of his background, where he's coming from, his struggles, and how far he has gotten to. And so with setups like this, it helps the boys and the lads to understand what storytelling is about and the power of storytelling. Because we believe that in the next decade, you see some of these boys hitting the big screens and your big leagues. And then you know that because they watch some of these stories and they engage with people within this network, they learn so much. And so, Ramesh, like you said, it's something we tell them. You're bringing something to the table, so don't settle for less. Thank you for this.
Wonderful, wonderful. Wonderful contribution there.
And to each of the students here, your story is your superpower. As a producer and a filmmaker, I'm looking to you guys. I want to meet each of you because I want to know your story because it's beautiful and it's your and it's your superpower.
Absolutely wonderful. Questions? Okay, there's a man under the shed on this side.
Hi, my name is Richmond.
Hello, Richmond.
Yes, I want to find out for young filmmakers, usually the problem is with the market. How, when you produce, if you're able to struggle to produce, how do you get it to the international market? How do you do it?
How do you do it, Collins, Ramesh, and Nicole?
Well, I may not have the direct answer to that question because I've simply just written for my local audience. I mentioned that when I want to write for commercial success, I think of what the environment around me is like, and then I tell a story to their satisfaction so that they will like what they see. So all my career as a writer, all my life, I've just written for the local audience, and somehow it ended up being loved by people outside. I've never written for an international audience. It's been successful out there, but I've never had them in mind while writing. So I don't know if I've just been lucky or I've just happened to, yeah.
You know, I think for a young filmmaker, right now the tools, the phone, even TikTok and Instagram or something, you know, they can start creating short stories. You'd be surprised who's watching these stories. You know, so that could be a good start, and it's like a low budget effort. So start from there, and then the stories have to be. We cannot copy like Hollywood, you know, when it comes like action or, you know. So we got to be really true to, like, the stories have to be ours, you know.
Yeah. Many things I could say to that. So I found that the more specific I was with my story, the more universal it became. So this wasn't just Ghanaian women. It was Ghanaian American women who were raised abroad and now they're back dating in Accra, right? It was very specific. And I just found that the more specific it was, the more universal it became. It meant that I got emails from China and India and Puerto Rico. But making it more specific made it more universal. But I would also say, yeah, I used YouTube, you know, and YouTube is what gave global access to my work. So it meant that producers from all around the world, including locally, could easily reach out to me and contact me about my work. Yeah. But use the tools available. Use YouTube. If you look at most of the Hollywood producers making it right now, like Issa Rae or Quinta from Abbott Elementary, I mean, they got their start on YouTube, or I think at the time, I think Quinta used Vine. But if you look at some of the producers who really made it in the world today, they started off on social media.
Interesting. Our last question goes to the lady over here.
Thank you. I just wanted to find out from all three, what's next? What's the next project? What can we look forward to?
You're on the spot now, Collins.
I'm writing a film titled Purple Culture. It's my own film.
It's called what? Purple Culture.
Purple Culture.
Purple
So
Culture.
I came in here and then I discovered that I think there's a lot of purple around the environment.
Inspired by
And I
NYU?
loved that. And I loved that. I did not know purple was like the official color or something like that before I came in here.
Okay.
I was still working on the script and then I'm coming here and I see purple. So I think it's a kind of sign. Forgive my superstition.
I love it. A round of applause for NYU, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, Ramesh. What's next?
Nothing. I'm just taking a break from writing. If something hits me, then I'll start writing. Yeah, I don't write just for. I should really feel it, and right now I'm not feeling anything.
Well, he reads all my scripts, so I was going to save it. I was going to save this announcement for tonight, but I'll share today. So we're working on a feature film for an African city.
Round of applause for that. Wow.
So yes, and some of the financing is coming here. Some of the financing is coming from Black America, and yeah, I can't wait. But there's a script that's done.
We all can't wait, huh? We all can't wait. Thank you for your questions. I'll give you a minute each to give a word of advice to young writers.
Well, for young writers, I will say don't stop writing, keep writing, and then learn to create a balance because there is this situation where, as a young writer, you have to be open to corrections. You have to be open to learning to be better, but you also have to be careful so that you don't end up internalizing negative things about your art, right? So while you are giving a listening ear to people correcting your work, you should be careful not to internalize the negative things such that you begin to have a self-doubt and imposter syndrome. So my words are just simple. Keep writing and learn to create a balance between what you should let into your craft and what you should not let into your craft. Thank you.
To the young writer, I would say don't have a mentor. Don't be influenced by any famous writers or something, because then you start diluting your mind. You start thinking like them. They say, oh, they're successful because they wrote about this. I think it's a story that you want to tell, even if it's about a dog you lost or the only football that you had and it got stolen. Write about that. So just your story, your way.
Yeah, Similarly, in your writing, be as honest as possible. And the more honest you are, the less you'll have to chase anything. I was very honest with an African city. BET called me the next day. I think I'd been trying to reach out to BET for years, but then I just stopped chasing. I did my own thing, and now they were after me. With an African city, it got the attention of Malcolm Lee and Dana Lynn North, and without me even knowing that I had caught their attention. But when it was time to do The Best Man, the final chapters, I got a call from them. And it was all because they had seen my work in African City. So just write honestly, and you won't have to chase.
Write honestly, and you would not have to chase. 3 lessons here today. Creativity, authenticity, and honesty. Took all 3 writers international, and they are doing amazing things. I think those are lessons for all young writers. You have to be creative. You have to be authentic to your story. You also, just like Nicole wrote an African City, have to be honest about your dating situation. Well, that got Ramesh a wife, so we're happy about that. That got Ramesh a wife.
Oh, yeah, actually, yeah, an African City led me to my husband, Ramesh.
I knew it.
She wanted free equipment.
I did.
She wanted free stuff. And you're like, you're going to be my wife if I give you any free stuff. That's interesting. Ladies and gentlemen, one more time for renowned script writer and creative writer Collins Okoh, filmmaker Ramesh Chai, and creator of the African City, Nicole Amarteifio, everybody. My name is Bliss Kingg. Thank you for listening to this conversation. We have a lot more film streaming tonight, so I'll hand you over to our coordinator, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much, Bliss.